So I've built a lot of Novas over the years. Now, some you've probably seen and some you probably haven't. Now, I've owned my current Nova SR for 10 years and I want to do something very special with it. I want to do something different and something you've probably never seen before. And I want to show you guys exactly how I do it as I go along. So here she is. I've just dragged her out of hibernation, and as you can see, she is filthy, unloved, and in desperate need of a full restoration. Now, this is a quick car. It's 300 horsepower. It's a 2-litre 16-valve turbocharged engine. Produces around 300 horsepower and does a quarter mile in 12.3 seconds. And 0 to 100 mile an hour in 10.1 seconds, which is as fast as a Lamborghini Diablo. Pretty quick, really, for what it is. But I think we can make it quicker. Now, you've got to remember, when I built this car, they weren't worth that much money, so I didn't plough too much in it. I built the let, I put it all in, and I did it as cheap as I could. And I've made it as quick as I could for as little money as I could. So at the minute, it stands me at about £4.5 grand, which is very cheap for a 300 horsepower car that does a quarter in 12 seconds. So anyway, fast forward to today, I've got a bit more disposable income, so I can invest a little bit more money into this car and make it my dream build. So one of the big things I want to do is fit fully working air conditioning. Now, I've never seen this done before. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to give it a shot. Now, the summers are getting warmer. I suffer badly with hay fever, so I need them windows closed and I need some nice, fresh, cold air pumped into the cab to make me enjoy my driving experience. Another thing I want to do is fit a much bigger turbo. Now, this is off an Evo 7 and they're good for about 400 horsepower, so I'm happy with that. I'm also going to fit an uprated clutch, steel conrods, fully rebuild the engine, and make it as strong as possible. As well as new doors, new quarter panels, possibly new wings, and a carbon fibre roof once I make it. But possibly the biggest thing I want to do is fit this four-wheel drive system. Now, this is a fully working Calibra four-wheel drive system with a locked transfer box. Whoa, you can't do that. They're crap. They were crap in the day. Why the hell would you consider even thinking about using that system? They were terrible. Get an Evo. Loads better. Everybody loves an Evo. They're cheap, aren't they? Sorry, mate, but that's a proper daft idea. Why don't you just use like a AWD S3 or something like that? They're loads better. Howdex systems are really good. Tried and tested. You're an idiot. Oh my God, why would you destroy a classic car like a Nova? You're such an idiot. Like, what are you doing with your life? Sort yourself out. Right, I know what you're saying. Hear me out here, guys. Yes, there is better systems. I completely get it. But I want to build this car as Vauxhall probably would have. So the biggest issues with these transfer boxes, or the four-wheel drive system, shall we say, is the transfer box. And this transfer box has been stripped and it's been locked. So the biggest problem has been solved. Yes, you do hear of a few other things. They're not as strong as newer stuff. I get it. I completely get it. But this still incorporates traditional Vauxhall stuff. It's still going to be kind of an over. If I use an Evo floor pan, which I will say is very expensive, like we're talking probably 10 grand for an Evo to buy just to strip. By the time I've used an Evo floor pan gearbox, I might as well use the Evo engine. I might as well just use the Evo in the first place. I don't need an Nova, do I? If I use the Howdex system, it's very much the same. Yes, they are a little bit cheaper. You can get them the more readily available. But unless I put the C20 LET engine on the Volkswagen gearbox, it's just not going to be much of a Vauxhall, is it? And even if I do that, it's still going to be predominantly Golf-based or Audi S3 based, whatever. I don't want that. I want this to be basically a Nova with a four-wheel drive back axle, bit of a tunnel made if I need to, and like I say, predominantly Vauxhall. So it's kind of like an age-appropriate mod. Yeah, it's not the best stuff in the world, I know that, but this is going to be a light car. It's not going to get a lot of use, and I'm pretty confident it's going to be okay. And if it's not, I'll sort it. Don't you worry. Right, it's been a long time coming, so let's make a start. Right, first thing I want to stress is I want this to still look like a standard-ish Nova. So I want it to be the standard width. Now, a Calibra or a Cavalier is much wider than a Nova, about 100mm. So that is my first problem. I need to make the back axle shorter. So with the tyres fitted and the wheels on, shall I say, I've strapped these pieces of wood either side so it's nice and parallel. And then I can measure between. And as it stands, the Nova is 148.2 centimetres. So that's with the tyre nearly touching the inner wheel arcs. Now my plan is, because the boot floor on this car is a bit crusty, it's a bit rotten in places, I'm not happy with any of the chassis legs, they're in bad condition. I'm going to cut the lot out and make new and start again. Make it exactly how I want it. I'm not going to use a Cleaver setup, I'm not going to use a Nova setup, I'm going to make my own, make it nice and strong, and hopefully I'm going to make it look fairly factory looking. So I've been looking at the axle, and as you can see, I've got two. Now, one's off a Cav Turbo, one's off a GSI 4x4. So one's an F20 setup and one's an F28 setup. Now, from what I've gathered, pretty much everything's the same anyway, but one's 5-stud, one's 4-stud. So we're going to be using the 5-stud setup because I also plan to use some fancy hubs on front with some massive brakes, which again, I haven't seen done before. So keeping with the 5-stud, I've done a quick mod on this back axle to make it a bit narrower. And with the wheels on, now bearing in mind these are 7-inch wheels, same offset but 7-inch wheels, so in theory it should be even bigger. I've got it to 148 centimetres, exactly the same as what my Nova is currently. You might be wondering, how have you done that so easily, Dan? Well, I'm going to show you. So what I've basically done is I've unbolted the arms from the original mounting brackets, which is here, and then moved it to the other side. And that is pretty much takes it exactly where it needs to be. Now, obviously, that is not going to work. I can't keep it like that. There's lots of problems straight away. So what I plan to do, I'm going to make another tab out of maybe some 4 or 5mm steel, go on this side to bolt it up properly. I then need to trim this bit away because that's obviously going to foul, and reinforce this side to make it stronger. Then I can cut all this off because this won't actually fit between the sills. So that needs cutting down anyway. But then we have a problem with the centre. Now the prop shaft won't fit between here. That's my next issue. But I've got a solution for that as well. So once that bracket is done on the other side, what I'm going to do, I'm going to brace this side. So I'm basically just going to weld some box section to this and to the subframe bit. And then I can cut this off and then I can remount this in its original place and reattach it to the arm. I'm going to brace it up, make it nice and strong. And that is going to basically make the spacing between there exactly as it was before, but pull the axle in to exactly the same width as the standard Nova axle. So straight away, that sorted a lot of my issues. Obviously, I do need to make the arm smaller, but sorted a lot of the issues. The next problem I'm going to have is the diff's going to need moving back slightly because the arms are slightly further back. And the drive shafts are obviously going to need shortening. Now, I might look into getting some custom one made. I do have 3 sets. I'm going to basically strip them, have a look, see what I can do with them. But I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about any of this, to be fair. So once all this is cut down, shortened, and then try and graft it onto the back end of my car. Now, the other issue I've got is where this is going to mount, and bearing in mind I'm not going to use any of the factory mounts because I don't like them. They're not very good, I'm not happy with them, so I'm going to make it completely different really. But the mounts are still going to be exactly where the fuel tank needs to be. Now, if you look at a Cav Turbo or a Cavalier Turbo, the fuel tank is in a different location to where it would be on another Cavalier. Fuel tank's actually at the back behind the bumper. I don't like that because if you have a rear ender, it could go wrong. So I'm going to have to reassess that. I might put something in the boot. I'm not really sure, but I don't want it underneath at the back. I'm definitely not going to have space for a spare wheel. It is what it is. So, shall I get the grinder out? Right, so I've just made this paper template, which is basically going to be a bracket for here. So I need to transfer this to steel. It's basically a copy of the original, but I'm going to make it out of thicker steel. So I'll weld it on like that, obviously drill a hole for the bush bolt, and then I'm also going to triangulate this edge a little bit to make it stronger, similar to how the original is, but it will probably be stronger than the original once I'm done. So that's the plan. So draw around the template using a Sharpie on a bit of steel, and then use an angle grinder with a 1mm cutting disc to cut it out. Now there is better ways of doing this. Obviously a laser cut would be fantastic. But obviously I don't have access to that kind of tooling, so a grinder will do for now. Once I get it to roughly the right shape, I then shape it using a grinder and a grinding disc, followed by the bench grinder. And there we go, one made bracket. I then cut down and trim back some of the original triangulation from the existing bracket, which I'll no longer be using, and clean up the axle ready for the new mounting bracket. I mark where the hole needs to be using a centre punch and then drill this hole out using a 12mm drill bit. Now when I drill it, I do use plenty of oil to keep the drill bit from getting too hot. That's just a little tip from me. And I transfer the bracket back to the subframe, line it up and weld it into place. Then I add a bit of triangulation just to make it stronger and weld it all up, and don't that look factory already? Right, so as you can see, that is one bracket done. Now obviously this needs cutting off here, and I need to cut this down because like I said earlier, that's not going to fit between the sills. But that's a very good start. I've reinforced it with a bit of triangulation here, and I think it looks all right. I've also trimmed away this. Next job is to move on to this side. So like I said earlier, what I'm going to do, I'm going to brace this arm to the subframe, and I can cut this bit off, put this back into the factory position, which is under here, bolt it up tight, and obviously join it back up here somewhere. It's not going to be that easy because obviously the taper of it, it'll be easier if it was like parallel, but it's not. So we're just going to turn it around and see what we can do. So start by cleaning up both the arm and subframe, and I get a bit of scrap steel out of the scrap bin and just weld it into place. This is literally there just to hold everything lined up. Obviously one side's already bolted, so then I can cut the other side out. So use a cutting disc and a hacksaw to cut the arm and then pull it out, transfer it to the vise. Now again, I look in the scrap bin and I find some 50mm box section that after a little bit of persuasion, I can make fit one end. Now obviously this isn't going to look prettiest, so I'm not going to leave it like this. But for now, I'm just going to tack it into place and connect the two back up. So as you can see, I've shaped the box section a little bit and I've welded it on and ground the top off. So this isn't finished. I'm now going to dress it with some 2mm sheet. I'm going to try and match the original profile and follow it around so it looks fairly factory and weld it into place. So use a hammer and a big chisel just to try and get it roughly in the right kind of shape. It's amazing what you can do with limited tools. And then tack it on and beat it as I go along just to try and finish that shape off. Right, so it's been a couple of days since I've done any filming. We've got a couple of things to do. So I want to take the arm out and take the drive shaft out. And also I'm going to ask you guys, if you like the footage so far, please like the video and please subscribe to the channel. It helps the algorithm, helps everything, helps me continue doing things like this for you guys. So if you do enjoy it, please support us. Right, I'm going to pull this part now. Hopefully it's going to come apart okay. And then we'll weld the other side up. So the drive shafts are held in with 6 8mm Allen key headed bolts. And as you can imagine, they caused me some problems. So 5 of them came out, the last one didn't. The head rounded off, despite me hitting it several times with a hammer. So what I had to do was weld a bolt in, which failed on the first attempt because it snapped, but basically weld a bolt over the original head, get the heat into it, and then eventually it came out. I then cut off the brace and removed the arm. I then straightened everything out a little bit and continued doing exactly the same on the other side. I panel beated another bit of metal just to try and match the original profile and fill it all in and make it look as factory as possible. I then welded it all up solid using plenty of heat to make sure there was lots of good penetration. Once all welded up, I pull the arm outside and grind it all back with a grinding disc followed by a flat disc. Now this does a much better job than a grinding disc and gives a much better, smoother finish. So guys, the axle is now shortened on one side. I've obviously still got to do the other side, but I'm going to do that off camera because I don't want to bore you. I still have to shorten the subframe a little bit, and I need to remove this mount and do a few other little bits, but I think we'll be doing that in the next video. So that's a good point to wrap this video up. If you did like the video, please remember to like it and obviously subscribe to the channel. And I will see you in the next couple of weeks, hopefully doing a bit more on this old girl. Thank you, see you later, goodbye.